Hey DPS 5th graders, we are here to talk about lesson 4, our final lesson of the module regarding the essential question of how does the United States Constitution shape the rights and responsibilities of American citizens and their government. Today we're going to be working on 2 learning targets, which are from previous lessons, so explaining relationships between 2 or more concepts and analyzing the structure of text and including how they relate to one another and the whole. Of course, remember that you can pause and rewind as you need of this video so that way you can have appropriate understanding. And of course, make sure to do something to write with and write on. All right, so of course we know that we read to learn, and today we're going to be reading the first 3 articles of the actual United States Constitution. We're going to be looking at the main ideas presented in each section and analyze how those articles are related to one another and to the Constitution as a whole. So you'll be completing this graphic organizer as part of your assignment, and then together today we're going to be looking at just Article 2, okay? And so when I'm looking at these articles, I want to make sure that I'm using my skill of finding the central idea of each section. You will notice that these are written in a style that we don't use in present day. So it's going to be super important that we are monitoring our reading, making sure that we clarify as we go, and that we're pulling out those important words and phrases to get the overall central and main ideas. All right, so let's go ahead and start looking at this Article 2. As I'm reading through it, I'm just going to highlight or annotate my important information. I notice that it's talking about the president and how the president has a term of 4 years. It then goes on to talk about who is electing the president, what we now call the Electoral College. Here it's called the number of electors. And the number of electors is equal to the number of senators and representatives that state has. As I continue reading through, it's talking all about the Electoral College vote, and the main thing is that whoever has the majority is the one that becomes president. So I'm then going to note that here, the power of the executive branch is vested in the president, a 4-year term elected by the Electoral College. As I continue through, again, I'm pulling out those important parts. This is probably going to take you a couple reads just because of the style that it's written in. Right, who can become a president? That's what it's starting to talk about. Has to be a citizen of the United States, a natural-born citizen, and it has to, they have to be 35 years old. The vice president has to be that as well, because if the president is removed from office, and the vice president becomes that, and Congress can make provisions for that. And then talks about how the president gets a salary, and also he has to take this oath. Right, so I've pulled out those important main ideas. We're going to go ahead and put all of that there. As I continue to move through, it talks about how the president is commander-in-chief of the military, and it also gives some examples of the president's power and also their checks on the president's power. Remember, we've talked about those checks and balances in our lesson 2.5. And so it talks about how the Senate can check and also how the president can be impeached. Okay, so now that I've finished reading Article 2, let's go ahead and think about how was this article structured. Okay, so how is it structured? Hitting that learning target. So first it tells me who the executive branch is, and then it talks to me about who can become president, and then it explains the responsibilities and powers of president. So it really is kind of like a leading me through who is the executive branch, how can somebody become president, and then what are the rights and responsibilities of that. So how does this article relate to the Constitution as a whole? Well, this whole article really explains the executive branch. Remember, we have 3 main branches. We learned about the branches of government in lesson 2. And so it outlines all of the responsibilities, powers, and checks of powers of that executive branch. So this is outlining a third of the government that the Constitution created, and hence that's how it's related to the Constitution as a whole. All right, so now that we've looked at Article 2 and modeled how to do that, you're going to go ahead and complete the rest of the graphic organizer, Articles 1 and Articles 3. This graphic organizer and the Constitution can be found on the next page of your Canvas module, so go ahead and head there if you are ready for your assignment.